9 experienced mountaineers, a tent cut open from the inside, and injuries that still don't have a medical explanation over 60 years later. A family who bought their dream home and started receiving letters from someone who said they'd been watching that house for 3 generations, and a woman whose body was found burned beyond recognition, with every single label cut out of her clothes so that no one ever could find out who she was. 3 cases, 3 completely different kinds of terrifying, and every single one of them is still, to this day, unsolved. If you're new here, this is what we do. Real documented cases, no dramatization, just what actually happened, so you can decide for yourself. Let's start with the one that even scientists still can't fully explain. Story 1. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. January of 1959. A 23-year-old student named Igor Dyatlov leads a group of 9 experienced hikers into the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. 7 men, 2 women, almost all of them university students, all of them highly experienced in extreme winter conditions. Their goal is to reach a peak called Otorten, deep in a remote, frozen wilderness. These aren't amateurs. These are some of the most capable winter mountaineers in the region. On February 1st, the group sets up camp on the slope of a mountain that translates, in the local language, to Dead Mountain. Their diary entries from that night are calm, almost cheerful. Despite bad weather and slower progress than planned, nothing in their own words suggests any fear or any sense that something was wrong. That is the last anyone ever hears from them in their own words. When the group misses their planned check-in date, a search party is sent out. On February 26th, searchers find their tent. It's still standing, half buried in snow, and it has been cut open from the inside, not the entrance flap unzipped. Cut open with a knife from within the tent, as if something outside terrified them so badly that tearing their way out through the fabric was faster than opening the door. Following footprints leading away from the tent, searchers find something that makes even less sense. The footprints show that some of the hikers were wearing only socks. Some had 1 shoe. Some were completely barefoot, in temperatures around 30 degrees below zero. They ran into a blizzard in the middle of the night without their coats, their boots, or their equipment, all of which was left behind, neatly, inside the tent. The first 2 bodies are found near the edge of a nearby forest, wearing only their underwear. Over the following months, searchers recover the rest. And the more bodies they find, the stranger this case becomes. 2 of the victims have fractures to their skulls. 2 more have massive chest fractures, the kind of force typically associated with a serious car crash. But there is no bruising on their skin, no external sign of what caused that level of internal damage. 1 woman, Lyudmila Dubinina, is found missing her tongue and her eyes. Some of their clothing tests positive for radioactive contamination. And witnesses from a separate hiking group, miles away, report seeing strange orange spheres of light hovering in the sky above the area that same night. Sightings that were repeated by multiple other people in the region over the following weeks. Soviet investigators, after weeks of searching for an explanation, officially closed the case with a cause of death listed only as, and this is the actual, real, historical wording used in the report, a compelling natural force. They didn't say what that force was. They just said it existed, and it was enough to kill 9 trained mountaineers who cut their way out of their own tent and ran barefoot into a blizzard. Theories since then have ranged from a rare type of avalanche to a secret Soviet weapons test the government covered up, to infrasound, a real phenomenon where wind interacting with mountain terrain can create a frequency low enough to cause panic nausea, and a sense of overwhelming dread without any visible cause at all. Some, less scientifically, still point to those orange lights in the sky. In 2019, over 60 years later, Russian authorities reopened the case. Their conclusion pointed to a specific kind of slow-building snow slab avalanche as the most likely cause. But even that official theory doesn't explain everything. It doesn't fully explain the missing tongue and eyes. It doesn't explain the radiation. And it doesn't explain why 9 experienced mountaineers would rather run barefoot into a deadly blizzard than spend one more second inside that tent. To this day, Dyatlov Pass isn't just the name of a mountain pass. It's the name of one of the most disturbing unsolved deaths in modern history. That case took place in one of the most remote, isolated places on Earth. This next one is the opposite. It happened in a quiet, ordinary suburban neighborhood, to a completely normal family, in a house they never even got to live in. In June of 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus buy their dream home, a beautiful 6-bedroom house on Boulevard Street in Westfield, New Jersey, a quiet, affluent suburb about 25 miles outside New York City. They pay over $1.3 million for it. They have 3 young children. This is supposed to be the start of a new chapter for their family. They haven't even moved in yet when the first letter arrives. It's typed, no return address, and it's addressed to them by name. The writer identifies themselves only as the Watcher. And in that very first letter, they make it disturbingly clear that they already know things about the family that a random stranger simply shouldn't know. Details about the house's layout, details about the ongoing renovations, and most unsettling of all, they refer to the Broaddus' 3 young children as, quote, young blood. The letter claims that generations of the writer's own family have been watching that specific house, at that address, for decades. That the writer's grandfather watched it in the 1920s. That the writer's father watched it in the 1960s. And now it was their turn. The family assumes it's a cruel, one-time prank. Then a second letter arrives, then a third. Over the following year and a half, at least 4 letters in total make their way to the family, each one more specific and more disturbing than the last. One letter asks, "Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out." Another reads, in part, 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. I am the Watcher and have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. I pass by many times a day. Think about that for a second. Someone is telling this family, directly, that they pass by their house multiple times a day. Watching. And they know exactly which house is theirs. The Broaddus family calls the police immediately. Investigators interview neighbors. They look into former owners of the house, who mention receiving one strange letter themselves years earlier, but had thrown it away, not thinking much of it at the time. Handwriting experts are consulted. DNA testing is attempted on the envelopes. None of it leads anywhere. The family becomes too afraid to move in at all. They install security cameras. Derek Broaddus reportedly starts watching the street himself at night, trying to catch anyone lingering near the house for too long. But the letters keep coming, and whoever is writing them is never seen. Never caught on camera. Never identified. Eventually, unable to live in the home they'd spent over $1 million on, and unable to sell it easily once the story became public, the family sues the previous owners for allegedly failing to disclose the earlier letter. They eventually list the house for sale at a reduced price, disclosing everything to potential buyers. The case has never been solved. Westfield police have publicly stated they have no suspect. To this day, no one knows who the watcher actually is, whether it's a former owner, a neighbor hiding in plain sight, or someone with no real connection to the house at all, who simply enjoys the fear they're able to create from complete anonymity. And somewhere in that quiet, ordinary New Jersey neighborhood, the person who wrote those letters may still be walking past that house, watching. The first case was about something no one could explain. The second was about someone no one could identify. This last case combines both of those horrors into one single, chilling mystery. Because in this one, we don't even know who the victim was. November 29th, 1970. A father and his two daughters are hiking through a rugged, remote valley outside Bergen, Norway, a place locals call Isdalen, which translates to Ice Valley. Partway through their hike, one of the daughters notices a strange, sharp smell coming from off the trail. She follows it. Among the rocks, she finds a body, burned almost completely beyond recognition, blackened, distorted. The family immediately flees back to town to alert the police. When investigators arrive, they determine the body belonged to a woman, likely between 25 and 40 years old, with dark hair, positioned deliberately among rocks that had clearly been used to build a fire around her. Scattered nearby, broken bottles, a burned fur hat, rubber boots, and a partially melted plastic water container. But here's the detail that turns this from a tragic death into a genuine mystery. Every single label had been carefully removed from her clothing. Every tag, every brand marking. Anything that could have helped identify where her clothes came from or who she was had been deliberately cut out. Someone had gone to enormous lengths to make sure this woman could never be identified. When police trace her movements in the days before her death, the case gets stranger. She had been staying in hotels across Norway under at least 8 different aliases, paying in cash, and repeatedly changing her appearance and travel plans. In her luggage, investigators find a coded notebook filled with cryptic notes and travel records that no one has ever fully decoded. Witnesses recall her meeting privately with a naval officer near a site where Norway was secretly testing missile systems at the time, which raises the obvious, unsettling question: who was this woman actually working for, and why? Theories emerged almost immediately. Some investigators suspected she may have been a foreign intelligence agent, possibly monitoring Norwegian military activity for a rival government during the height of the Cold War. Others believed she may have been running some kind of long-term fraud scheme, moving from city to city under different names. And the official, final police conclusion, reached after a surprisingly short investigation, was that her death had been a suicide, and that everything leading up to it, the aliases, the disguises, the secrecy, had simply been part of an elaborately planned end to her life. Many people, then and now, have never accepted that explanation. Decades later, in 2016, Norwegian and British journalists began investigating the case again for a podcast series called Death in Ice Valley, using modern forensic science that didn't exist in 1970. Isotope testing on her remaining teeth and jawbone, the only parts of her body not buried when the case was formally closed, suggested she likely spent time in the Nuremberg region of Germany at some point in her life, and revised her likely age to closer to 40. But over 50 years later, despite DNA testing, international collaboration, and a global community of amateur investigators trying to crack the case, her real name has never been confirmed. Her nationality has never been confirmed. No one has ever definitively explained who she was actually meeting with, why she needed so many false identities, or why someone, possibly even the woman herself, was so determined to erase every trace of who she really was. She's known today only as the Isdal Woman, a woman who entered history with no name and left it exactly the same way. 9 hikers who cut their way out of their own tent to escape something that still has no explanation. A family who bought a dream home and were told, in writing, that they'd been chosen and were being watched. And a woman so determined to disappear that she erased her own identity completely, even in death. 3 cases, 60 years apart, in 3 different countries, with 3 completely different kinds of horror. And in every single one, the people closest to it, investigators, family, an entire nation of curious strangers, still don't have an answer. So tell me, out of these 3, which one genuinely disturbs you the most? For me, it's the letters. Because unlike the other 2, whoever wrote them might still be out there right now. Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more real, unsolved cases like this every week, make sure you're subscribed, because this channel is just getting started.